Hello everyone and welcome to Makeover Monday Viz Review for week 41. Hi Charlie.
Hi Eva, how are you this week?
Good, how are you?
I'm all right. I'm really quite looking forward to this week.
Good. I see you wearing your Makeover Monday shirt.
I know this is the original. I don't know what year it's from, but quite a way ago.
2016.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got my tableau. It's like a tableau, like a simple, I don't know what you'd call it, jersey jumper. And it's got tableau on the back, but it's just really cozy and simple, and I like it.
Look, see, we're well in the mood for it today then.
We are in the mood for it. I've been doing lots of thinking today, so it's good to do some doing as well.
Good.
Yeah, and hopefully people can see that I have added a bit of greenery into the background. So
Oh, you've beaten mine. I've got this pathetic little thing over there, but well.
I've had this for probably a bit over a year, and it's just been sitting in corners, growing slowly, and now it's quite bushy, and I think it's liking what it gets, and I can see. Oh, I think I need to pull up. Let me actually change over to Twitter. Okay, so we have our list, and I'm gonna scroll to the bottom. I think we'll start at the bottom if I can find my mouse.
Yes, please.
And hello to everyone who is on, and hopefully my audio is okay, because people were saying that I'm always really quiet and Charlie's always really normal. And I'm literally eating the microphone. Okay, so Denise is on. Okay, so Denise is on, which is great. We're getting some sun showers outside. Okay, Charlie, tell us a little bit about this week's data set. I'll just briefly bring up the original viz. Where is it? Here we go. Because that was a showstopper.
It was an absolute ripper this week. So this was somebody that I follow on Twitter had retweeted it. I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago, and it stuck in my mind because I think the front page of the tweet looked interesting, and then when I went in and clicked through and downloaded the report, it was full of incredible stuff, and I could have chosen from, I don't know, 3 or 4 different charts that were all, challenging to read. And I just thought, actually, look, this is a really simple data set. We've just had data 20, which was quite intense. I thought everyone would like a nice simple week to have a simple data set that was fairly easy to improve on. And that's where we are.
I've noticed, Charlie, that every time we do this, we give people a really simple data set to just give everyone a break. People go all out and really kind of overcomplicate things, right?
Yeah, so I've been a bit mischievous with my selection this week. So I think everybody knows now that when we do Viz Review, we are quite selective. We choose a variety of things just to give us a variety of things to talk about, to be honest. And this week, my personal view was that the best solution was to not have a radial bar chart. Let's just have a straight bar chart. Bam, that's cool. But it would be really boring if we walked through 10 or 15 of them today. So there are no normal bar charts in the Viz Review selection this week. So we've got 25, and there's, some variety for us to work through.
You certainly keep us on our feet all the time. And I did send out a tweet earlier this week, and I know that Andy picked it up in his Watch Me Viz, that I mean, like we always say, we're happy for people to create whatever they want to create. But there is still the idea that we improve on the original. The original is pretty terrible, and I don't say that lightly. I try to find something good in every single chart we review. You can see that on my blog, but I could not find anything good to say about this chart. And then when I see people recreate it, it's like, why? Because please also keep in mind the discussion we have about, your portfolio. I mean, I think if I recreated something that was a chart that doesn't do anything well, I would probably put in big letters above it, I'm just recreating something bad. Like, you don't want this to reflect poorly on you, because sure, you might have learned how to create a radial bar chart, which will help you in the future create other cool things. But people might think, why would anyone use this? And it doesn't tell me anything. So your skills as an analyst might be questioned. So maybe just to keep in mind. Now, let's keep the fun of Makeover Monday, but also it is called Makeover, not Replicate Monday. Just as a little reminder to encourage everyone to see what could you actually improve about it rather than replicating it. And with that, shall we jump over to Cheryl's, the first
Yeah,
one
let's
on our
do
list?
Cheryl.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to make that a bit bigger because I can see that it's obviously a bit small on the YouTube screen. And this is a lollipop.
Yeah, so like I said, we've got no bar chart. So I guess one of the more recognisable alternatives to a bar chart is a lollipop. And the thing that Cheryl's done immediately, which I think improves upon the original, is first of all, we don't have multiple duplicate colours for all these different industries, because you just don't need them. If you've got the name of the industry on the left of your lollipop, then you don't need a variety of different colours. So step one is a big improvement from Cheryl straight away. The other great improvement, so the thing, the original had loads of flaws with it, but one of the main ones was there was no sort order. So again, Cheryl's improved on that by giving us a sort order, so we can easily see retail's top in terms of respondents, automotive down at the bottom. So she's got rid of the colours, she's got rid of the crazy bendiness, she's given it a sort order. We've got nice, clear header, subtitle. It literally improves everything, in my opinion, from the original. I think if I was nitpicking, I'd probably boost the size of the title and subtitle, but everything else works for me.
I agree. It's definitely an improvement, and I think the other thing I would improve, or not improve, would change, is making the line just a little bit fatter, because they're quite skinny. They remind me a bit of grid lines just because they're white on a dark background. Now, you are in the wider sense in the financial services and insurance industry, right, Charlie?
Yeah.
So would you combine those three subsections of financial services into one?
See, I did, and I don't think there's a right answer, because you could possibly argue that there's a case for aggregating stuff like maybe retail and travel and leisure and entertainment. You could argue that they're in a broadly similar sort of discretionary spend space. So I aggregated it, and with hindsight, it might be the wrong thing to do, because if you've got like a subsets of a broadly similar industry, it doesn't mean you can necessarily tar them with the same kind of brush. So yes, they're in a same broad industry, but they're doing quite different things. So like banking is different to insurance. So I don't think there's a right answer. I can see an argument for bringing them together and keeping them separate. So that's my view on it.
I agree with you. What I would say is that the survey was about data strategy. And I wonder if you could say that, generally speaking, banks and insurance companies have similar data strategy or similar ways of working with data, similar regulatory restrictions, similar transactional data. I'm not sure. They probably don't, because when I think about how much I use a bank versus how much I use an insurance, they're very different. But I know they're typically lumped, and I did lump them together as well, simply because of the naming. I mean, if they're all financial services, maybe they should be together. But just something for people to have a think about, what they want to do. Okay.
Yeah, Cheryl was a good start, because it rectifies a lot.
Absolutely. And then we have Sana, who I think has done Makeover Monday for a while, because that name certainly sounds familiar, and I think it's been over the course of many months, if not a couple of years. Okay, I'm going to make this... I'm going to zoom in quite a bit, because it's quite a small viz in terms of the size of the actual footprint. So she's just done a stacked bar chart. Yeah,
so I've not got conventional, straightforward, like horizontal or vertical bar charts, but I brought in some variants of bar charts. And so with this one, I guess one thing it definitely does is it uses space efficiently, so it's not having to take up a great load of space for a separate bar for everything running down the page. So it works in that respect. And again, I think it's an improvement over the original, but the downside of it is that you lose, after the non-profit section, any visibility of what industries those subsequent ones are. So yes, it's in the tooltips, but I'd argue that it's not as accessible because of that limitation. I don't know what the best solution would be for that. You can either start aggregating together these completely different industries like energy, utilities, and automotive, you could group them all together and say, well, they had less than a 5% share or something. But I quite like the little call out to show that the major respondents were in financial services and retail. I think it's an improvement, but has those limitations about the smaller categories.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. And I wonder if the financial services and retail sector, they might have so many respondents because they're quite large industries and they probably have jumped on the data bandwagon very early so that they're more targeted by these companies doing the surveys because there are just more people with data in the title on LinkedIn who can be hit up about the survey, right?
Yeah, and the sample size was really tiny. It was like 100 companies or something like that. So it doesn't take much to create an illusion of a massive response rate when you've only got 100 people that actually responded. So it's something to take with a pinch of salt.
Yeah. Okay. There we are. I had to bring that back shortly. Okay. So, and then we have Siddharth. I'm just trying to find this. Okay. So he's asked for data frame feedback. I'm not sure if that's still happening because I don't actually see any responses. So we'll give him a review. And I did give him feedback. And he says thanks, but he doesn't, I don't know if he's made any changes. Let's see. No, he has not. Okay, that would be my first point, that if you ask for feedback, people give you feedback and you don't make any changes, then maybe consider if you want feedback. Because I would say that our feedback is pretty frank and not necessarily just praise, but that's because we want to help people improve rather than, just kind of patting them on the back. Okay, I guess my first question is what I'm looking at, because there's a lot going on. There is a magazine cover, or the report cover. There is red font, which looks a bit like, I guess when I edit PowerPoints, I keep things in red that I still need to edit and that haven't been finalized. There is a radial bar chart. Basis company size. I'm a bit confused because this to me looks like something from data, like it's supposed to be from Data IQ, which is it's not a good idea to pass yourself off as another company when you're not. I'd be very careful with that. And I don't really know what to do here. So have organizations achieved full alignment between data and business strategies? I don't see the answer. I see questions. And then if I click on...
No, it's almost like it's like a company prospectus or something, isn't it?
It's just quite rebuild the report in Tableau. Or no, this is it's just a picture that's pasted, isn't it? Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah, so it's quite cleverly done in that respect. But I think when we opened up at the start, we said I think he's learned a lot from introducing these elements with parameters and opening up these images. So there's definitely a learning exercise there. But the fundamental intent really is that you improve on the original. And okay, if there is an improvement on the original in the sense that a sort order's been added, but there's also elements of it which don't make any sense to me. So we've got this use of blue in sectors which aren't related, this loose use of sort of reddy orange in sectors which aren't necessarily related. So there's inconsistencies there, and there's an extra decimal point that you don't need. So there's some improvement over the original, but there's also some fairly basic flaws as well. So I think there's no doubt that a lot of work has gone into it, but it's just quite bright and garish, and there's lots competing for attention. So it becomes quite difficult to work with. And so fundamentally, my focus is going to be on what element of the original have you looked at and have you improved it? And I say, yes, you have improved it, but there's still a long way to go.
Yeah, and I'm just, the right side section is to me just quite disappointing because it literally, the errors, okay, fine. That he might have learned something there, but did she just copying and pasting screenshots from the report into your Tableau dashboard? That's not what Makeover Monday is about. And I find that quite disappointing, to be honest. I'd also say there's a lot of different font sizes, colors and styles going on. Just like Charlie said, there's a lot going on visually, and I think it just needs to be toned down a bit so that people know what to actually focus their attention on.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so Joe Symes is next.
Yeah. Okay, so...
So this time we've got kind of waffly way of looking at it. So it's designed, I don't know if it's in an actual phone size layout, but it's coming through on my screen in a readable way. So like I said at the start, there aren't going to be bar charts here. And I think Joe may have learned from the exercise of creating waffles, but I think the downside of this, particularly if you are specifically designing for mobile, is that you want something which is compact, and a waffle is not compact. So you've got quite a lot of scrolling to do to be able to see all of these different industries. And when you're doing all that scrolling, you lose the context of, all right, well, how does this compare to retail, or how does this compare to automotive? And so I think it's good to try and build something for a phone layout, but not all chart types suit a phone layout. So I think for the medium that is designed, I don't think it's the best choice.
Yeah. It's also, there's so much space going on, at least on my screen, between those columns of dots, and then the alignment of the numbers is a bit odd because they're in the middle but at the bottom. And I think this could be much more compact. You could probably fit all the waffles on a single screen. And I'd say that I don't know if this is the right way to express it, but it doesn't look very tableauish, because the font looks, at least the one in the orange block, looks like Arial. There's all these borders and these kind of, it looks a bit old school in terms of reporting design. And I'd see what you get with just leaving the default white background. Just keeps it a bit cleaner and makes it easier to then focus on the actual numbers. Okay.
Yeah, so I think the case is just reevaluate the chart choice to fit the sort of consumption means of the audience, and see what you can do to take away some of that color and make it just look a little more seamless.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, and then we have Preeti, who went all out and created multiple different charts, and you can choose. At least that's what the GIF suggests to me. So let's see. So we have a text table as a default, and we can say bar chart. Maybe. And we can say donut chart. Takes a little while. I'm not sure why that is. That's my main
feedback about it. So obviously I always choose things with a bit of a purpose, and I thought this was a really useful way to actually compare 4 charts in one go, and without question the bar chart wins for me. But yeah, it's that lag between the parameter selection is a little bit strange. I don't know if that can be sped up, but it's neatly done, and you can see that the focus again is on those financial services sectors, and actually what Preeti's done is probably the best solution of bringing, when we talked earlier about do you want to aggregate all these 3 financial services bits, she hasn't, but she's made them associate by using that consistent bar color, which, yeah, like I said, is probably the best solution. So I think it's quite nice, a nice interface. Obviously, you wouldn't really implement this sort of thing at work necessarily, to have flicking between chart choices, unless you were just trying to get people engaged with the idea of data visualization. But it's nice, and I included it to give it that comparison of the different chart types, and to put donuts in. And donuts are kind of, for me, they're a bit like that waffle chart we just looked at, where they're nice, they're engaging, but they're quite inefficient space-wise. So yeah, the bar wins for me.
Actually, I want to go to that radial chart because it made me think about something. What I noticed, okay, it's quite slow on Tableau Public. What I notice on the radial chart is, so we have 3 different bars for financial services, but because they curve around at the bottom, it looks like we have 5. If I just look in the middle of the chart, I've got the 3 starting points, and then at the bottom, there's still these 2 bars that keep curving. So I'm like, oh, why is there 5 when it's actually just 3? And I think that's how the radial chart lets you down compared to a bar chart, where they just stay in their place and you don't get mixed up.
Yeah, the thing I really dislike most about radial charts is when I look at it, I think of a circle. So I'm thinking of either a clock or I'm thinking of 360 degrees. And when I think of 13%, I've got an idea in my head of where 13% of 360 degrees would be, because it's not too difficult. But this, to me, that retail is going around 75% of a circle. So you get this instant disconnect between what you expect and what you see. And this, for me, is why this chart type is just nasty. I think it's so misleading because it creates this conflict in your head of what you think you see and then what you read that you see. And that's why I just don't think we should use them.
I cannot think of a single use case for a radial chart. I have not seen a single one where I thought this is the best or even a good choice for representing data, unless you want to show how many minutes have passed out of 1 hour. Like, that's literally the only time I can think of. But then it's not really a radial bar chart. Then it's more like a donut chart, I guess, would be the clock equivalent. So if anyone cares about best practice, then just forget about ever using it again, would be my suggestion there. Goes with like the same way as the 3D, any kind of 3D charts.
Well, it's interesting you should say that, Eva, because guess what's coming next?
Oh dear. Here we go. We've got 3D charts. Now,
yes.
I have to say, just looks-wise, this is the first one that I actually thought, it looks kind of cool. Like, that kind of slight transparency, it makes me think of like a what do you call them, like fashion jewelry, like an upside down earring or something.
Okay, yeah.
But I will let you start us off here.
Yeah, no, I was conflicted as well, because I've been very deliberate about the things I've chosen, and we always hear that actually 3D is a bad representation of things, and in many respects this still is, because like if that top one is 13%, but because it's in 3D, you have to hover to get the actual value. So this is the downside of this chart type, is when the way they're plotted sort of strays beyond its actual value, it's not great for precision. But I think the fact that actually you've got that table to the right showing what the value is takes a bit of that away. It means that you could look at this as a static viz and not depend on the tooltips. So that's all right. I think one of the challenges of it is where you've got industries with the same response rate, which you're going to get when you've got such a small sample, is you have these shared bars. So automotive and digital services are both in the same bar. So that becomes a little bit of a tricky thing to get your head round. But yeah, I included this one because I really wanted to dislike it, and I do dislike it, but I like it.
And what I think is particularly clever are the 2 bars. Oh, sorry, there's 3 bars where 2 sectors or 2 industries have the same value, and they're combined. I mean, to do that in Tableau, I think like it impresses me. So I think I'm in the same boat as you. I want to dislike it because it's a 3D chart. The value is definitely in the color legend with those numbers, but in terms of grabbing my attention, it does a really good job.
Yeah, I thought one thing that's confusing me is you've got like that 12% financial services other, which is near the top, and then I was getting some weird thing on hover. So manufacturing looks like a similar color, and when I was hovering over it, it said financial services other 2. So I didn't know if there was a problem with overlapping marks or something. But yeah, if I was to be critical beyond the 3D, it would be maybe some of those colors are a bit close.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've not had one of those before.
No, I have not seen that in my 4 years of doing Makeover Monday. Leading Makeover Monday, I should say. Okay, and then we have Masato.
Yes.
Okay, let's check that one out. Okay.
Yes. So I really didn't know what to make of this, because I was a bit confused, because we've got like a series of, I guess, donut charts arranged in a circle, and then there are bars coming off the side of those, which I almost don't know if they're labels, or I assume they're labels, but they're like connectors to the labels. So we've got energy and utilities at the top with this long brown bar. And just because we're looking at data viz, I almost expect that to be a value because it looks more like a small bar chart rather than like a connector. So it's really confusing because you've got this 3.3% of energy and utilities, which is longer than the 5.4% of manufacturing in the bars. And the reason that's confusing is because actually the value you want to look at is the pie chart, which has got this teeny little segment, which you can see is bigger than the segment in energy and utilities. So it confuses me. So we've got those bars that aren't bars. There's no sort order because I don't know what the sort order is of this. There's colour which is duplicated across unrelated sectors. And I don't know what your thoughts are, but it baffles me.
It baffles me as well. And I understand the desire to connect the words to the pie, but after the midpoint, it gets messy because they're not aligned anymore. So the bottom line doesn't actually connect to the bottom icon properly. It's somewhere between the bottom and the second to the bottom. And as this is a data visualization, like you, I'm confused by those lines thinking, is that a bar chart? But it's not. And I think it completely overdoes what could be a very simple visualization. It could just be, I mean, why do those pie charts need to be aligned in a circle?
Yeah, it's difficult, and I think even if you had a sort order in place that made sense, it might take a bit of the edge off it, but it would still be awkward. So I just think the whole layout needs some reconsideration.
And also, it should be respondents, not respondents. So paying attention to spelling is really important. Also, the data source should not be data manually lifted from PDF, linked in source article Monday 2020, week 41. It should be data IQ. And put your name on there as well so people know who created this. Okay. What do we have next?
We've got Vignesh Suresh, and this is another unconventional chart type.
I had not seen this.
I don't know what this is called, but
Christmas decoration?
Yeah, it's got all the bright colours in the world on it. So data assets and data culture. So 40% of strategies are fully aligned and 51% are still developing. Okay, so that's obviously stuff from the report. So we've got like a wonky star kind of thing with lots of prongs on it. And the positive thing is there is a sort order. So we're spiraling down. It's almost like one of those coxcomb charts, but without it having sort of exploded sections from a pie, but pointy bits.
I didn't even know you could do something like that in Tableau. Like, how do you make those shapes?
I don't know if it's something to do with polygons or something like that.
I just want to see if he mentioned something on Twitter. Inspiration. Oh, it's a Rutherford chart. Okay. I'll just have to take your word for it. Data assets and data. Okay. So it should be data strategies. There's a space too much between R and fully. And it should also be all lowercase. Now what do we make of, like, how what do we do with the visualization? What's our suggestion here?
Well, I guess you can't say.
I want to say that the labeling at the end of, at the tip of the star thing, I think that's well done because it's really neatly aligned. And even if there was zero color, I would be able to say what each is. So I'm quite happy with those labels, I have to say. I think you could definitely say it's an engaging chart type and it's unusual, but it's still readable. And the fact the sort order's there helps. And this is one where, because sometimes we say
just because you've got a series of different categories doesn't mean you need to color them differently. But I think actually it probably does help this one, because if it was all just one color, it would merge into one. And the reason you can't use one color is because of its arrangement. So it's like a radial arrangement where you can't easily make that comparisons of the lengths, because they're moving round at a few degrees round each time. So I think it's a creative solution in a world where bar charts don't exist, but bar charts do exist.
Yeah. Yes, bar charts do exist. So I'm also trying to think of what could be an approach that makes that leaves that creativity in here, but just makes it a bit easier to actually use the visual element to compare the numbers. Because at the moment, I need to rely on the numbers, in which case you could just give me a table. Because if the visualization, so the colors and the shape of whatever you've built, if that doesn't help me to understand the data, then it doesn't need to be there. But I would like to have the visual help me, because I don't want to just look at numbers and compare them in my head, because I've always relied on a calculator ever since ninth grade, so please don't make me work so hard. So I'm trying to think, and if there's something else other than a bar chart, and maybe it could even be a tree map, or
Yeah, so I think it's an interesting take on an existing but still fairly niche chart type. So it's definitely creative.
And somebody said something about the tooltip, but I'm trying to hover over the things and it just says what the industry is. So anyway. Okay, so
right.
Then we have black cappuccino. Okay, I need to actually go to Tableau Public to see what the name is. Raman. Okay. Okay, here we go, Raman. Let's see what you made. Okay.
So this time we've got kind of people call these comet charts, and I'm interested to understand your view on it. So again, it's not a lollipop chart. It's not a bar chart. It's kind of halfway house in between, and it uses size to encode the end of the comet, as well as length being used to define what is effectively a bar anyway. Do you think it adds much value having it like that? Sort of, it's like a stretched bar, isn't it, really?
Yeah. So the one challenge I have here is, because the left side is so skinny, it almost devalues the labels. So it makes me focus on the number, but by the time I get all the way to the right side, especially at the top, I've forgotten what the left side said. So I need to constantly go back and forth, because the labels are really far away from each other, because I feel that the labels are a bit far away. Or you make it fatter vertically and actually write the industry into the end of the bar, so that the category is closer to the number.
Yeah, I think those are valid points. A couple of things that stand out to me are, what is this title clear enough? Does it let people know what we're looking at? It doesn't really. So data asset and data culture across the industry is 13% of what we don't know. So let people know what they're looking at. And the second bit is just about consistency of formatting. So I'm assuming that those vertical 5 and 10% are reference lines that have been labeled up, but there's no decimal places on those, but there's 2 on the labels. So just be consistent with what you've got, and there's no percentage sign at the end of the labels either. So it's a simple formatting thing, just to be consistent with how you've got your numbers coming through.
Yeah, and always making sure you include your own name on the viz as well as the author. That's something we always recommend, so that people know you built it.
Yep.
And then
okay.
We have Lena. Oh, maybe if she's on, she can tell us how to actually pronounce her name. I just want to make sure I get that right. Okay, so a stacked bar charts. Oh, so she's categorized the categories, I guess, or the industries.
Yeah, I liked this one, because I can remember doing something like this a year or 2 ago for Makeover Monday. And
you did with the social media stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's ridiculously good memory. I couldn't even remember, and you can. Jeez.
It's because I use it in a presentation, and I'm working on those slides at the moment. Yep.
So I like this because it, again, a bar chart's efficient already, but then if you're aggregating stuff in similar industries, or if you're creating an aggregation which is this discretionary one of retail and media and stuff like that, it further aggregates data and just allows you to be a lot more compact. And yeah, there's a debate about whether it's right to do that, and whether it's now impossible to compare financial services banking against retail, and it's all true, but it's a design choice that you can make, and I quite like it. I like the simplicity of stuff. I'm not wild, to be honest, about the 50% being in massive font in the subtitle, but everything else I really like. I like the color use. Yeah, I think I'm just generally happy with this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm not actually. Let me just quickly jump to her tweet, because yes, she's used a custom font that looks like Avenir. Because I was thinking it looks a bit odd with the serif font, but that's really that's Table Public's doing, not hers, in how it displays it. Because I'm on a Windows machine, so it won't show up in Avenir. That's the one thing that I noticed, that the font type looks a bit odd, but that's not her fault. And I agree that it's nice and neat. Maybe I would make those axis labels a bit larger and just get rid of the axis rulers. They're not necessarily important.
Yeah, and I think it's not terribly clear. Again, we know what it's about because we've looked at the data and read the report, but I think you could do with just having a little bit more context in the title somewhere to let people know what it is. But otherwise, I really like how crisp and clear it is.
Yeah, especially because when you talk about respondent sector, I think that at least the subtitle should state something about this being a survey by a specific company done for a specific purpose. Like this is not the world census. This is like some very sub sector thing. So yeah, making that clear so people know.
Okay.
Oh, so, here we go again.
Yeah, Shweta. So 2 lots of 3D charts in a week. But it's not there anymore.
Okay, we'll skip it. And then the next one, I don't know if there's a link. I don't see a link. I only see an image, but we can work. Oh no, there is a link if you click into the replies. Okay. Did we have said something like this recently? Because somehow it looks familiar. I think there was. I can't remember. I haven't got your memory, but I've seen it somewhere for sure. But yeah, it's interesting. I think it was in like an Iron Viz submission or something like that. Maybe, yeah.
So it's interesting. It's kind of like a half a Sankey joining to some rounded bar charts, basically. So it's another one where there's like an engaging element on there to draw those connectors. I mean, they're entirely unnecessary. It looks pretty cool. I like the look of it. But it just makes you wonder if the purpose is engagement, then that's cool. It doesn't really add much to the overall thing. And then if we get down to appraising actually the data element itself, it's these rounded bars, and I just think it's a bit colourful again. I just think you just don't need to go nuts with colour. It almost makes it look a bit, cartoony is the wrong word, but it just feels a bit unprofessional. And
it feels a bit like pencil case, kind of all the crayons.
Yeah, and I think actually the whole half Sankey type of bit or curvy lines to the left, they do sort of fit. You could imagine them in certain sort of publications, and I think to make it look more professional would be just have standard color, because it will just make it look a lot more professional. So if you tie it to like the blue that's used for data culture, I think it would look really good. I think the font size is pretty tiny at the end of these bars. I'd probably consider bumping those up. And then again, the same point about decimal places. You've got 2 there. There aren't 2 decimal places in the data, so just chop one. It's like if you can lose stuff, lose it.
Yeah, and I would say, so I haven't checked this because we're just looking at the viz, but the text on the bottom left looks very much like it's copied and pasted from the report, and that to me is a big no-no. I mean, if you're smart enough to use Tableau and work with data, you're smart enough to rephrase these sentences into something you wrote yourself. So I'm making the grand assumption that this is copied and pasted because it just sounds very familiar from what I read. But, if you didn't, then all good, I'll take it back. But basically a suggestion to everyone that unless it's a super specific description that you can't really reword, then by all means use it, but indicate it as a quote. Don't just copy and paste the text, because essentially that's also stealing, even if there's no repercussion. So make sure to rephrase things, paraphrase them, make sure to include the data source and your name. I don't know how many times we've said that today. There seems to be a bit of a people seem to have forgotten to do that. Okay. Next up we have Suzanne Foley. And
so yeah, this is here because it's a variation, isn't it? So it's not the same as a lollipop really, because you've kind of got this consistent 0 line, if you like, that everything's running along. So I included it for that being different to a lollipop. And I was also curious along your thoughts about having other at the bottom, so it's sorted in descending order unless it's other, and you can kind of understand why, because other's a bit of a mishmash of industries. I don't know, I wasn't sure if I would have moved out there, otherwise it would have been the 3rd ranking place, so I can kind of see the thinking. Does it bug you?
A little bit. I wonder if just making it lighter grey would help, because the grey is fairly strong. I think in terms of, I don't know what you call it, like color density or something, it probably competes with that pink. So maybe making it lighter grey could be an option.
I think there's probably a color consideration as well, because the title says most responses were from financial services and retail, then everything else is that same pink. So I think you could better reinforce your message by just colouring those sectors. Maybe make everything else grey and other black or something like that, just to differentiate them.
And if everything else is grey, then other could move to 3rd spot, because then it doesn't stand out so much.
Yeah, and I think one of the downsides of this chart type is the fact that, again, when you've got a large circle, it's covering a range of probably like 2 or 3% on the actual scale, but because it's directly labelled, it gets round that. So I think it's quite a nice chart choice, but just needs a little bit of polish with the colour use.
Yeah, agreed. Now, I see that we don't have Andy on the chat. He is actually off to pick up a bike, so he couldn't join the live chat today. But if anyone wants to do Andy a favour and make him really happy, then you should hit like on the YouTube video, because I think he would get quite excited seeing that we liked his video. That's not even his video, that we're just doing on his channel. As a little aside, so hit that like button. Okay, I forgot who this is.
This is Elena.
Okay, so Elena, please make sure to put your name on there, because I'm assuming you've posted this on Twitter, and pictures on the internet have a tendency to take on a life of their own. So make sure that people know who created this and give you credit. Now, first thing I have to say is I like the color choice. I think this is really neat.
Yeah, it really stands out. And again, this is kind of an example where using a tree map makes total sense to me, because look how different it is to how a pie chart would look. So a pie chart would have all these segments and would be a bit of a nightmare to look at, but somehow the fact that you've not got angles and stuff to wrestle with makes the tree map perfectly usable. And I really like the fact that she's aggregated the financial services bits together, but underneath you've got that little bar showing, and this is made up of other banking and insurance. So that's nice. The text is clipped a little bit on the insurance label for me, so that's a real minor bit of formatting to look at. But I'd like the tree map in this instance. I think it works really well.
I agree. And I also see that she's taken some liberty to, kind of rename the aliases to make them fit. And maybe telecommunications could be telco. I think that's a fairly accepted abbreviation for it. And then what's the last one? Digital. You could even try I guess that's the thing with the tree map. You have no control over the shape of those boxes. Like, you just have to take it or leave it. So I'm not sure what to advise there, but maybe there is a way to fit those labels in there somehow. Maybe it could be a bit taller on top of its width. Now, there's 2 points I want to make. It looks like the font is bold, or maybe it's like, I don't know if this is the Tableau font. I don't think so, but it looks like quite a bold, strong font. And because everything is very black and heavy, I'd maybe reconsider that. And then the one issue I have is the curvy bracket. So I want to show you something, because I'm assuming you've built it in PowerPoint. So here's PowerPoint, and I'm going to, oops. Okay, let's try this again. Shapes, here we go. So curvy bracket. Now, they're always a bit funky to start with, but just use that yellow dot, and you can make it as curvy as you want, because when they're smooth and curvy, they just look a bit nicer. Okay, so, and then of course you can rotate the thing and save it as a picture. Oops, so rotate it that way. So just as a little comparison, because I find it just a bit kind of edgy, and I think they look nicer when they're nice and curved. So just FYI, in case you didn't know. Okay.
I think it's cool. The only thing that, if I had a little gripe, it would be the bar chart's got a decimal place, the tree map doesn't. So I would say, actually, when you've got stuff that's got the same percentage, when it's at one decimal place, it's probably worth, when with no decimal places, it's probably worth including one, just so you can differentiate between, because they don't necessarily have the same values.
Yeah, that's a good point, especially because the numbers tend to fit in these anyway. Mm-hmm. And then maybe a little tidy up in the tooltips, because they're a bit not messy, but a bit busy. Okay, and here we have a pie chart. There is no link. Or what did he say? Working Power BI.
So I wanted to include it because we don't get enough Power BI joining the fun. So we've got research based on data from respondents coming from varied sectors of economy, which helps to see a general trend for the total market. So it's a bit of a wordy, clunky header, but respondents by industry sector. So we've got so a multi-segment pie is never really a good idea, because when you look at it, we've got no clear sort order even within the different coloured segments. So, or is it getting bigger? No, it's not even getting bigger. So I don't know what the sort order is within the segments. And I do wonder if maybe there's a bit of over aggregation of some of these industries, because like others huge, it's more than half the pie. I can't say exactly how much, because it's an image, but
then there's other within other.
Yeah, and you've got other within other, but then you've got stuff like public sector and manufacturing and not-for-profit. They're really, really wide selection of different industries to aggregate together. So I think it's an over-aggregation which skews things all together. So I think if you've got a distinct other category already, then retain that. But if you hadn't done that aggregation, then you would have what still is a multi-segment pie. And I think that's the main problem, isn't it? It's a pie chart with over a dozen segments.
Yeah. And that just makes it really hard to comprehend. And some of them not being labeled also doesn't really help. But there is always a chance to, I guess, create a bar chart.
Yes.
So Vadim, we look forward to seeing what you come up with. And then we have Let's Work Less. I like that idea. And the real name is Marquis T. Okay. I'm going to just zoom in because this is quite small on my screen.
So I included this for a very specific reason, and it was, so we've already had lollipop type of charts. The sort order is nuts again. So it's like it's alphabetical and then others shoved to the end, which doesn't make any sense to me. So if you're going to call out other and separate it, then still sort everything else out in descending order by the value to give it some sort of logical structure. it just feels disorganized, because you wouldn't scroll through a list of industries alphabetically unless you were 30 years ago trying to look up a phone number. I don't see why that sort order's there, so I would lose that. And I think the link to the colour at the end of the lollipops is a bit, you've got to pay attention and see that a quarter of respondents are from financial service sector. Is that little section in the top right? It's a bit too subtle. So I'd find a way to make that far more prominent and stand out. So I think get your sort order sorted and be a bit more careful with colour again.
Yeah, and then bringing back that 1 decimal point to differentiate some of these data points from one another. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, here we go. Here, where the link? There we go. So Adriana. So this is the coxcomb chart, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So it's kind of like they're fancy, and it's kind of like a messed up pie chart in my head, mixed up with a bar chart. And I think when you get these hybrids of concepts about angle and size and length, that it just becomes difficult. So there's no doubt, yeah, visually it might catch more people's eyes than if they were just looking at something more conventional. But if you take those percentage labels away, it becomes quite a struggle to know what's going on, because you can't really have an axis on one of these, whereas like a bar chart without an axis or without a label is fine because you've got an axis, and similar with a line chart or stuff like that. But this would be really, really difficult without the labels, and that's kind of what makes it work.
I agree, and I would make a assumption that if we only had, let's say, 4 or 5 categories, it would probably work. But because, like, I like at the top retail, financial services, other, like, that's easy to read. I have this nice big wedge, and then digital and automotive, also fine. But there are so many labels, and it doesn't help that each of them has an icon. The icon doesn't really help me, but it just makes it very busy. And what the chart looks like to me is actually a staircase. And I'm trying to think of, how could this be used as a staircase kind of thing? So I think the chart looks great. I just find it hard to comprehend the information because, we've got percentages, icons, words, shapes, sizes, lengths.
Yeah, I think you're right. It feels like an odd combination of things. Is if you strip away everything else, the chart itself is pretty crisp and contemporary and modern looking, but just like the font for the title, which is over there, kind of looks like it's shoved on, and then it's an overuse of iconography. So I think just losing the icons would improve it a lot. And I would look to see what you could do with that section on the right of text. Where can you reposition that to make it look more in keeping with the contemporary feel of the rest of the chart?
Yeah, I want to make a suggestion. I want to make a couple of suggestions, actually. The first one would be to see, because also the font is sized, or at least the number is sized as well. Could you keep all of those the same? And could you have the number just at the top of each wedge, in the top, like from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and then put it to the side, and then at the bottom, so they're all kind of inside the chart. That's kind of one suggestion. And the other one would be, if Apple were to design this visualization, this whole page, what would they do? Because if you look at any kind of Apple design, it's very minimalist, very stripped back. There's a lot going on the right side. In the text, we've got orange, we've got different font types, we've got italics, we've got underlined. And I think that really doesn't at all connect to the stuff on the left. But I think there's a lot of potential here. So I would love to see this slightly reimagined, as Tableau called it, and also for you to stick your name on this.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then we're making good progress here. We have Swapnil.
Yeah, so this one fascinated me because it's kind of, so earlier on we had that sort of dendrogram thing with all the curvy lines that I called half a Sankey wrongly, with the bars on it. This confuses me entirely because effectively you've got a series of bars that are all ending at the same point, but they've got labels on for different values, and it's probably because size is being used to encode. And then you've got industry sectors in a legend which don't align with the bars that are immediately to their left. So it's really, really complicated to get your head around just the encoding and then the disconnect between the order of the bars you're looking at and the legend. So I just think there's a load of ways to make this far, far easier to read. I think encoding with size is not a cool idea at all. I can't see all the labels on my screen, but that's probably because I've got a tiny, silly laptop. So it's better when I go full screen, but I just think it's so hard to actually understand. And when you look at the tooltips, there's some of the fancy calcs used to create the chart type in there. So there's a lot to work on here. General layout, how can people better understand this? Have I used too much color? Yes, you have. There's 2 decimal places. Do I need them? No, I don't. The general sort order, the whole encoding piece needs a rethink. So I think there's a learning element from the dendrogram point of view, but a layman is not going to understand this.
Yeah, I'm just downloading it because I had this idea that I wanted to suggest, but okay, yeah, remind me tomorrow. Okay. Oh, what is this? Okay, there's something really weird. Never use automatic sizing. Oh my god, I don't know what to do. I'm lost. What? I add a desktop layout. Yes. I just what? Why is that so big? Anyway, let's go to the chart because that's what I'm actually here to talk about. I don't understand. All those lines come together on the left, but they don't have a connection, and they're all industries, but they're not related necessarily. So if we. Yeah, I wanted to add the industry sector to the labels. No. Oh my god, now I have to do a dual axis. Let's see if I end up breaking this. Dual axis. Okay, now on the one side we have that. On the other side we get rid of that. And we put in that. Okay. And let's just get rid of all of them, and let's show. Oh god! See, this is why. Just create a bar chart. Okay. Now we also want to show. Oh yeah, of course it doesn't show the bloody industry sector because this is. Anyhow, what I wanted to suggest is stick the industry sector on your line, like just on top, floating above, so that you don't need to have this crazy color legend that doesn't align. But all in all, I probably wouldn't use this chart. Even just the 30 seconds I've tried to do some formatting here, that I would lose my last bit of patience, I think, having to work with that. But all power to everyone who wants to do that.
I just find sometimes I think there is a point in trying to create something that's engaging, but these all start from zero. So there's lots of curvy fanciness for effectively what is a zero line. So I just don't see what the point is. I just don't get it.
Yeah. It's overcomplicates it massively. So let's look at this one by, again, I can't tell from the viz who did it, CG George. I'm getting a big collection of lessons learned this week, so maybe I should ask people what they think the lessons learned are, because they will probably, based on today's discussion, be able to say. Okay, what do you think of this one?
So again, there's a reason for it. So George has he's created like the horizontal space to capture 100%, if that makes sense. So the dot for retail is 13% of the way along a 100% axis. But when you're dealing with the share of respondents to a survey, that you're never really going to have 100% from the same industry. So it feels to me like it uses a hell of a lot of space that it doesn't need to. And yeah, that was my main reason for including it, was just thinking, actually, is there a more efficient use of space here? Because you could actually just plot 13% over a wider area and not lose it, because by having everything to 100%, everything looks so close together that it looks like there's no real variation there.
It does. And I think this is a chance where, like Charlie said, there naturally won't be all the respondents from the same one. So no one would ever expect you to make the axis 100%. So I think take the liberty to show more more variation in the data between the 1 and the 13, and you'll only achieve that if you don't fix the axis at 100%. I would say make it as long as you need to have those labels in there neatly, because that's probably good enough.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, it's fine to sort of truncate a bar chart the other side of the data, if that makes sense. So there's always, you wouldn't remove 0 in a bar chart, because that totally distorts things. But this is the other way around.
Yeah. And I am totally loving the live chat, because people are so spot on with their lessons learned. I see that Denise really liked my comment about smooth and curvy brackets, and smooth and curvy things are good. All right. Oh, here comes another bracket. There we go. Or as Andy calls them, a mustachio. I almost said pistachio, but that would be completely wrong. It's a mustachio, which I find so hard to say. It's like it's just a curvy bracket. Okay. Now this one. Oh.
This is another unique one. So I am as big a fan of packed bubbles as you are of radial charts, and this is kind of like a flow of stuff. So we've got 77% of services. So I don't know what is going on. So I think who has
so I think the top is actually aggregating. So I think this was, again, there's no name, but I think Mary, yeah. So I think what she has done is she's categorized all the industries into services, manufacturing, energy, and other.
Okay, yeah.
You know what would be cool, Marie? If you click on services, it should then highlight who are services, but I think it only includes the bubbles for the services, if I'm not mistaken.
So it's sort of stripped out energy, other, and manufacturing.
What if I want to see those? Maybe there could be a filter, but then I guess the curvy brackets don't work anymore, because they would stick there and sit there weirdly.
Yeah, and it's similar to the earlier one, the pie chart that we had, where we had that other taking up half, and it says here that respondents mostly come from the service industry. And well, yeah, but is media and publishing a service industry? I don't know about that.
No, because they actually produce products. Like, wouldn't you think that when you print a book, that's manufacturing books, isn't it? Or printing, I guess, is some sort of manufacture, because you need to cut down trees and all that.
Yeah, so like not for profit, I wouldn't class as a service industry, because they cover multiple industries. It's not really a service thing. So,
and I would say that retail is something like services and retail should be at the same level of category. It shouldn't be that one is a subcategory. Like finance, definitely a service. Travel and leisure, probably a service. Telco, well, depends whether it's the provision of the phone line or the actual phone, because that would be manufacturing.
Yeah, so there's questions about the aggregation, and then I love packed bubbles so much, but at the top you've got services at 77.3. I scroll down, and finance at 25.1 is bigger than the 77.3, so that doesn't make sense. So everything's got to be proportionate, because then when we get to finance, it's then split up to its 3 component parts that we've seen elsewhere, where the 12% of other finance is bigger than is almost as big as the 77.3 at the top. So there's just whole scale thing going on. I think it's not wholly successful is how I would describe this one.
Yeah, I like what she tried to do. I get what she was trying to do. It's, kind of almost like a flow, almost like a waterfall of how things are put together. I'm just not sure that the chart type is the right one, and that it's not easy to see. I think even something like, because basically this is meant to be parts to the whole, right? So you could do even a stack bar chart or something like that. And then when it comes to colors, we've got finance, the same color as insurance. But then insurance, banking, and other are all part of finance. So just having a bit of a think about, is that actually easy to understand? And energy has the same color as retail. So paying attention to that as well. But I like that, she's taken a different approach and started at the idea is high level down to more detail. I'm just not quite sure that there's even enough data or enough of a story to tell here. Okay. Oh, and here we have star. So this is Aditya.
Yeah, Aditya. So, yeah, this one was, it's an interesting one again, because so we've got the values in a table, and then we've got stars that are they're sized based on those, on the values. And it just feels totally unnecessary to have the stars there, because first of all, I don't think a star has any real relevance as a shape for the subject matter. And I don't get the point of bothering with them.
Yeah, because this is not Hollywood Boulevard or something. I don't see why a star would make me think of an industry, not even if it was aeronautics or, space stuff. The star is not, for me, not the right symbol. And also because it gets so, what does it give me that the number wouldn't? And why not use the number and maybe a bar behind the number that kind of shows the magnitude more simply?
Yeah, so it was a strange one, because I think you've hit the nail on the head there. You wouldn't just remove the star, otherwise you've just got quite a boring table. Yeah, it just makes sense. If you want to have this tall, narrow view, then you could try and visualize it some way. So at the moment, it's just a table with a bunch of stars on it.
Yeah. Okay. Which just made me think, I have not picked your data set yet for next week, but I have in my head that I want to do something with a heat map. So maybe I should find a suitable data set. And I'm loving the discussion in the chat, by the way. I do keep sneaking over and having a look. So keep that going with, what is this? Hang on. How is there such a big viz out of...
So Anthony's gone into the main report and lifted all the data to pad it out, which I think is good and resourceful and demonstrates a bit of endeavour and being proactive. But I was just looking at actually the chart types within this and colour, and there's quite a bit to work through here. But I think at the start we said the focus always has to be to improve the radial chart that we had. And in this, there's a lot of charts that are reminiscent of the original report, and I'm not quite sure this nails it. So the first section is, so this wasn't in the original data, but what levels of adoption are there in the company? And we've got triangles sized by response rate. And sizing a triangle is the same as sizing a star or a circle or anything like that. It isn't the simplest thing to understand. So it's like one of the earlier things where we had stuff that was, the label makes that chart. I can see that developing is bigger than early stages or bigger than reaching maturity, but it's just a bunch of big triangles. It just doesn't feel like a sensible way to pick that information.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, what I could even imagine is that... No, forget what I was about to say. It feels very busy because everything is very close together, but also spread out. So it's spread out horizontally, for example, that second table with the numbers, but it's vertically, it's very squished together. And I know that colors are subjective. For me, these colors, they don't really work. It's like the shades of the colors just don't really blow me away. And I want to suggest to have a quick look at Coolors, because I know, Charlie, you use that as well. In case people struggle to find the colors they like. I mean, there are plenty of palettes in Tableau. You can create your own Tableau palettes. You can save them in your preferences file. But this is a really cool website if you just want quick and dirty. So
It is brilliant. I can't remember who I first saw using it, but I just pinched the idea from them years ago, and it's incredibly good.
So basically, this is what you get, and you hit the space bar, and you get a new set. And then I say, well, I like this one, the purple one, so I'm going to click the lock. So it keeps the purple, and it just toggles the other ones. Oh, I also like the blue. Let's keep it. And I just keep going until I found a color palette that maybe is not so much cotton candy, but something somewhat sensible. Oh, okay, so here's my color palette, and then you can actually export it. You can have it as a PDF, and the PDF, this is also brilliant. I think I need to, no, I don't. Now let me bring my PDF over. It gives you the hex code, RGB, HSB, which I don't know, and CMYK. You have all the information. You can save it for all eternity. So I strongly recommend to use that if you want to find some nice color palettes. But what I also would suggest is when you look at Tableau color palettes, you see that there's typically a strong color and then a light color, so like dark blue and lighter blue next to each other, so that you have that difference in contrast, and they're not all really bold colors, because then it gets really exhausting to look at. So just working with, like, find your own colors by all means, but have a bit of a look, because Tableau they have a color expert, like a color researcher in their team. They actually have a whole team on color and best practices. So learn from how they've structured their color palettes, because that gives you a bit of a hint of how you combine colors.
Yeah, so other feedback specifically on this viz I've got is just some sort order stuff. So underneath the triangles, we've got this: does your organization have a digital transformation vision? Why wouldn't you sort that in descending order, just to make it clear which the most prominent response is? And then to the right of it, we've got annotations which are just reinforcing what's already to the left anyway, so they're just not necessary, they don't need to be there. And then lollipop charts, there's no sort order. Again, why wouldn't you do that? And then we've got this section under how would you describe the level of data literacy, where you've got these, it's almost like a connected scatter plot, but they can't be connected because they're different responses. So why is there a connection there? Yeah. It's just, it doesn't make sense. And then we've got a section in an attractive salmon pink where I can't really tell what's going on. If I press on these options for the parameter, okay, so it's just different questions. But again, there's color for the sake of color, which overlaps with color used elsewhere.
And then on the right, you have this combination of bar chart and area chart, where again, he's combining or connecting the categorical members of this dimension, rather than, it's categorical data. It's not continuous. It's not, 1 to 10 or something.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on, and I think just chart choice, color choice is what needs to be thought through there.
Yeah. And maybe another text, and you'll have to forgive my Pinterest suggestions, because it's probably all going to be food minimalism and some like style stuff. Now, what did I want to say? Data, infographic, for example, like something like that. You can actually find really cool examples, and then by all means refine your searches of how, because I think what Anthony was trying to do is really have that kind of infographic approach, where you have a bit of chart, a bit of text, and that's very commendable. And you can learn a lot. If you're a non-designer like me, you can learn so much from just looking at these examples. And sometimes what I do is I literally click on one of those. I'm like, okay, these are what the elements, this is how it's laid out, and I literally copy the layout or replicate it just with my own data, my own text, my own topic, but I can see what works. But if I had a blank page, I wouldn't know what to do, because I've just never learned these concepts. So use Pinterest, use Coolors, use those tools just to, just find interesting layouts and see what you get. Okay.
Are you good for one more?
Yeah.
Right at the top, we've done a lollipop and we've done like a little dotty thing. So the top one is Abhinav Mishra, I think.
Yes. Okay, there's quite a bit going on there.
Yeah, it's a color feast. So data assets and data culture at the top in sort of turquoise and yellow. And so immediately I start thinking, all right, turquoise and yellow are important. So what's going on? And I can see that in this donut underneath, there's some turquoise, but it doesn't really relate to data assets. So I'm a bit confused, and I can see there's a big load of yellow for financial services, but that doesn't exclusively relate to data culture. So immediately color use has thrown me. So this is how like important these fundamental applications of color and size and encoding are, because once people are more familiar with looking at charts and with use of color, they're going to start immediately making assumptions, and my assumptions immediately here are wrong. So there's no need for that color in the title. So I'd start by stripping that out. And then what are your thoughts on that first explosion-y chart?
I would get rid of it. I find it very confusing because not everything is labeled, but there is a lot of things. And then, like, it's really weird. We've got a green icon that looks like some kind of Greek building thing, palace or something. And then we've got entertainment, which seems to be green. Oh, there's a visit tooltip, but entertainment is the orange one.
Yeah.
The orange one is energy. Like, it's everything isn't really aligned, and basically totally get rid of that bit. It's yeah. And the icons, they're just not good.
Yeah, so like in that top sort of explodey chart thing, we've got finance other is in green, but in the chart underneath it's yellow. So color all round, just be more careful. And effectively it's depicting the same thing twice. Once in the donut, multi-segment donut, that's not a good idea. And then once in this exploding chart with lots of icons, but not all the icons. So it's just inconsistent. So if you're going to depict information, do it in a way that works. And if you're going to use iconography, do it using a chart type which supports it. So where you've got a uniform amount of space to plot an icon for each industry beside a bar chart, as an example, rather than trying to squeeze some in for a chart of that type.
I definitely agree. There's a lot going on, but I think there's quite a few points that we've covered in previous visits that Abhinav can apply here as well. Okay.
That's 23, 22, something like that done this week.
Yeah, I'll bring us back on the screen to say goodbye, and you can see the daylight. Oh my god, the lighting is terrible. I need to sit back from these screens. Yeah, so hopefully people found that interesting and helpful. I enjoyed it.
I found it quite enjoyable this week because it's not just line charts and bar charts, so I think we should do this a bit more often.
We certainly should, and I hope it's entertaining for people, but also, valuable information. Mm-hmm. And I know we can be very blunt, but please forgive us. We've talked about this for 4 years now. I'm just going to quickly check the chat.
It's just honesty, isn't it? I mean, so yes, we are direct and blunt, but if you put yourself in the shoes of stakeholders at your business who are looking at your charts, they're going to be as blunt as us, and it matters in that case. So use our directness to refine your skills, and then you won't get bluntness from people who really matter.
Exactly. It's meant to be really, this comes with us caring for you to get better and us caring about you learning things.
Yeah.
And we really enjoy having you all on this live. It's really fun. I see the familiar names. We have Denise, we have the usual suspects, and many more. So it's great to have you all on board all the time. I really enjoy that.
Cool.
Okay. And for those who were expecting this 5 next week, Seth is moving house. And it's not trivial, so we have decided to move it by 2 weeks. So next week I've got a data set, then Charlie, and then we're going to have Viz 5 in the first week of November. So stay tuned for that. But until then, we'll find some more fun little data sets.
Cool.
Okay. Enjoy your evening, everyone, and thanks, Charlie.
Bye.